Come Play is a new horror film that recently came out during Halloween last week, by the way. Didn't check to see if anybody had a good Halloween, but hope you had a good Halloween. The film that stars Azzy Robertson, it stars Gillian Jacobs, and it stars Steve Gallagher Jr. Is his name Steve? Or is his first name something else that I'm just not remembering? You'd think it'd be easy with a name like Gallagher Jr. for me to remember that shit. I can't remember, just Gallagher Jr. He's in this movie. The story surrounding this movie is about this autistic kid played by Azzy Robertson. His autism means that a lot of times he has to communicate using phones and tablets and stuff like that. And so really this movie is about this being, this creature from another dimension who reaches out to this kid through his tablets, through his electronic devices, basically is trying to turn the windows and the screens of the electronic devices in this movie into doors that he can walk through. This creates a very haunting situation for this kid and for his parents and for the other people when they realize that this thing is haunting them and trying to basically come to their world so that he can bring somebody to his. There's gonna be a lot of people that compare this movie to a film like The Babadook, and I don't know if you've ever seen The Babadook. It's one of the most brilliant horror movies that I personally have ever seen. If you haven't checked out The Babadook, you definitely should. This one, while I can understand the comparisons to The Babadook in terms of its style, its setup, some elements of its story, it's really more of The Babadook without teeth. It's The Babadook, except if you put it in a PG-13 movie and if you changed around a lot of the circumstances within the film. That's basically what this movie is. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have some good things going for it. For starters, it feels like all of the performances from an acting standpoint in this movie don't belong in this movie, if you know what I mean. Like, they feel like they're performing way above the material and what it requires. Gillian Jacobs is really good in this movie as a mother who is trying desperately to connect to her son who doesn't really have a connection with her. Azzy Robertson, it's mostly a physical role with not a lot of talking, not a lot of vocal stuff, but he's really good as well. This film does have an external threat. It does have a monster, a creature, something to fear, something that's haunting people. Yes, that is a big part of the movie. But I would actually argue that the underlying core of the story of this film is really more about a family trying to reconnect, or at least a mother trying to connect with her autistic son and not really knowing how to. Similar to a lot of really good horror films in the last few years, this is a movie that doesn't shy away from focusing on more emotional aspects of the story. And I do appreciate the film for the attempt. As far as the design of the creature, I wasn't really that impressed, although I was impressed with the practicality of the creature. They definitely relied less on CGI and a bunch of flashbang computer generated effects and really more of like practicality, making this thing look somewhat realistic, somewhat lifelike. They also did a really good job at hiding this creature and not showing him when you think they're gonna show him. In a movie like this, I feel like less is more, and the cinematography really lends itself well to shadows and hiding this thing in plain sight. Also does a really clever thing with the screens and the mirrors and the windows in this film. You almost always know that there's gonna be some crazy shit going on with that. Focusing on this creature, but not focusing on it directly because you're always seeing it through something else. I thought that was actually a really clever touch. Like I said, it's The Babadook without teeth. It's more like a discount PG-13 version of The Babadook, and in that sense, you walk away from this movie feeling like you enjoyed yourself, but ultimately feeling kind of dissatisfied. It's definitely a movie that I think could have benefited from a rated R rating. It feels like sometimes the camera work intentionally cuts away and hides things when they want to show like graphic violence, somebody getting hurt, something really bad happening. Bigger problem with this film is that not only are there some plot threads that are kind of picked up and then abandoned and never really dealt with again, but it's also in the fact that since this movie doesn't have a lot of high-end scares and it just has a bunch of the same typical jump scares that you've seen in a bunch of other horror movies, because of that, you would want to focus more on the story and characters, or you at least would want maybe some of the metaphors that show themselves in the movie to really be focused on a little bit more, but unfortunately they aren't. While the characters, you somewhat care about their plight, even then, you feel like they don't really go as far with these characters as they could have. Beyond that, it's not really a scary movie, so you're left with basically your garden variety thrills and a lot of the cliches and predictability that are associated with the tropes of the genre. Everything that you've seen in better horror movies, you're gonna see in this movie. As far as scares, there's scarier movies out there. As far as better stories, better told, they're out there too, so feel free to check it out. I didn't love Come Play, but I also thought it was a solid watch. I'm gonna say it's worth a headline in the Daily Planet. All right, guys, those are my thoughts on Come Play. So tell me, what did you do for Halloween weekend this past weekend? Did you stay home? Did you steal somebody's candy? Let me know what you did in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show. And as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.